I'm Dr. Jordin Wiggins, and this is the Pleasure Principles podcast. Join me on this journey where sex, science, and sensuality meet. Let's change the conversation around sex and pleasure together. Welcome to the Pleasure Principles podcast, another girl talk episode with two of my favorite humans, goddesses, sisters on the path. So here's the thing. 1 in 2 women are crusty as fuck, meaning they're going to suffer from sexual dysfunction at some point in their lifetime. They lack desire, aren't able to get turned on, suffer from pelvic pain, have difficulty achieving orgasm. And this is a topic that is not discussed. So it's very hard to find information and solutions to these problems. We Google, we go to our doctors without answers that work. So that's why you are here, because somewhere deep down, you want to want sex again. You want intimacy, connection, and to feel seen and heard by your partner. This is my mission, my passion, to bring pleasure to as many women as we can, to create community and sisterhood, and give women the freedom to live the lives they really want to be living, not just what they think they should be. So you know I love a taboo topics, especially that there is miseducation around. Today, we are going to tackle infidelity. All right. Cheating, affairs, infidelity. Let's start it with an Esther Perel quote. Esther Perel calls infidelity universally forbidden, yet universally practiced. So
yes, I've heard that quote. She's amazing.
That's brilliant. Like, I love
brilliant
and desire her to be a guest with us one day.
And so shall it be, or something even better.
So let's talk about shame. I find there's this refusal for women to talk about it when they get cheated on, and this sort of narrative that, big surprise, blames the woman, like you didn't keep your man, or but yeah, there's this big shame piece around it. What are your thoughts?
I totally agree. I think that no one wants to talk about it. If they've been cheated on, it is, what did I do wrong? What wasn't I bringing to the relationship? What wasn't I providing to my man? And that's embarrassing, right? Especially if you're a woman who on the outside has their shit together, and you would look at her and say, oh my God, you're like the last person I would have ever expected for this to happen to.
And it is like it's our personal failure as the woman.
And I think infidelity is just complete cowardice, right? I mean, it doesn't take a lot of courage to practice infidelity.
Absolutely. It takes so much courage to confront the issues that are in the relationship. It's so much easier to just go cheat than work on the relationship itself. And I think also, Joe, not only is so much shame for the woman who has been cheated on, but then oftentimes the blame goes to the other woman. And the accountability piece for the man, it's like, that fucking bitch stole my man.
The homewrecker. No one calls the man a homewrecker, right?
Right. Yeah, it's on both ends.
It's like you're in my head, because that was my next point. Is it's almost like we let men get away with it, and women are blamed on either side.
Yes, and we are so often in each other's heads, Joe. I feel like that happens frequently.
It does. I love it.
Yeah. It's, and I do think it's that piece of the man can't be blamed for his drive, for his urges. And also the woman being seen as a temptress. It's the whole Adam and Eve thing. Like, it's Eve's fault, that Adam fell. And yeah, I think that it's really super hard on the women in all cases.
Agreed. And I personally think, and wrote about this in the Pink Canary, teach it in pleasure principles, but when we have proper sex education, get over the belief in shame, women naturally have more drive, like are more sexual, more insatiable. Just look at our ability to have multiple orgasms.
Right.
So again, that we can do a whole other episode on that. But it's those beliefs, right? Like, oh, men, need to sow their seed, their drive, and it's all just narrative. It's all just story. It's not actually factually accurate at all. And it sets it up that it's okay, more okay for men to cheat, and it's the woman's fault no matter what.
Well, I'll even share just sort of anecdotally what happened. I remember when I first moved to New York, and there were so many networking events for me. I was out almost every night, maybe every night, and minimum like 2 events a night. And there are very few females that do what I do. And so we were always hanging out with men, drinking with men, a lot of whom, were commuting into the city and then commuting out to the suburbs. I mean, it was really, truly like you can't script this shit any better than real life, right? Like the guy comes in, goes to Financial District in the suit, and goes home to the wife who's been taking tennis lessons or Pilates all day. And
Right.
It was like time and time again, this one girlfriend who was out quite often with me, we would leave and we'd be like, Jesus Christ, if we had a nickel for every guy who A, hit on us, or B, told us about their loveless, sexless marriage. And, we would joke and say, like, God, if these women at home only knew, all it takes are 2 compliments and a blowjob. And most of the men would say, I don't even need the compliments. But I look back on that many, many years ago, and I fell into the same trap that we're talking about. It's like, well, so why is it the woman who takes on the responsibility and the brunt of that?
Yeah, and it goes from 2 compliments and a blowjob to, what's her equivalent? What does she need to be turned on and become cock worshiping again? Like, where are her needs not being fulfilled? Where's her resentment coming from? So yeah, we got to think of a
hopefully
witty...
the pool boy was meeting her needs,
Well, and Joe, I think, and Gigi, I think we see this in pleasure principles a lot, is that there are a lot of sexless marriages out there. There are a lot of unfulfilling marriages out there, intimately unfulfilling marriages out there. And and it's not either party's fault. However, I think the fact that our societal perception of sex is so based on the male sexual response, is based on that spontaneous, instantaneous desire. Like Gigi said, the 2 compliments and a blowjob. That's all it takes. That super quick, easy, fast kind of sexual response. And the woman's needs aren't getting satisfied in the bedroom. And why would she want to continue having sex if her needs aren't also being met? If her responsive desire isn't being cultivated and her orgasm and her pleasure isn't a priority, then she literally becomes a human blow up doll that just lays there. And I can't blame these women for not wanting to have sex in a marriage where her pleasure and her sexual response and her orgasm are not a priority. I wouldn't want that either.
Masturbating with a vagina. No, thank
Right,
you.
exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
You go get it somewhere else, pay for it, whatever you need to do. But
Yeah.
no,
But kind
thank
of
you.
like we were saying, women don't even know what to ask for because the way intimacy is built for most women is not educated. We're not educated on responsive desire. We're not educated on our accelerators and our brakes. So we don't even know these concepts, and we think we should have spontaneous desires similar to our partners, our male partners, and that we should be able to drop our panties anytime, anywhere, and that there's something wrong with us if that's not how we want sex. So yeah, I think that whole narrative is so broken in our society that there ends up being a lot of infidelity, and the woman feels like there's something wrong with her when really there's something wrong with the way we look at sex as a whole in our culture.
And that's why we need to teach it. And it takes 12 weeks minimum
Yes.
because it's
And it's
been,
so sad. It's so sad. It's like this is what we should be taught in sex ed when we're in high school, right? We should be talking about female orgasm. We should be talking about female anatomy. We should be talking about female sexual response system. And, unfortunately, most women aren't ever learning this unless they find, pleasure principles,
unless
right?
they find us. Yes, for
Mhm.
sure.
No, yeah. Instead, at a young age, when you're starting out on your sexual exploration, you're learning from your friends who have older siblings, or
Right.
you go to college and kind of collectively learn, fumble around with your other teenage friends who don't know what they're
Right.
doing.
Or
Porn is
pornography.
default sex education
Right.
for sure.
Yeah,
Right.
learning from porn, learning from OnlyFans, and that's not reality based. And all of that stuff is indeed based on the male sexual response as well, that spontaneous desire, because it's mainly a male audience. So they're of course going to cater to the male sexual response since that's who their funders are. And women think that that's how we should perform as well when we perform very differently. But like you said, Joe, if our performance, if what we desire is taken into consideration, they will have a sex goddess in their bed who wants to be in bed often. But men don't know and women don't know. So we end up with infidelity.
So since we're talking about pornography as default sex education, what is cheating? Is watching porn cheating? Is sexting someone outside of your
Oh,
relationship
that's a
cheating?
great
Like
question. Ooh,
kissing, like what is cheating?
I think it's different for everybody.
I'd agree.
My definition might be different than yours.
Yeah. And for me, I think like in my personal relationships, what I'm recommending with my coaching clients is that you're having a conversation and an agreement in each new relationship.
Yeah.
And it's going to evolve over time. And it's the breaking of those agreements that's cheating to me, because
Yes.
when you're in high school, maybe you have this very like linear, rigid, don't kiss anyone, don't look anyone, don't text anyone, I don't know. And then as you're older, it might evolve and be more fluid, or maybe each partner it's a little different. But for me, the cheating comes in when there is dishonesty or a lack of integrity. And that could be anything. Like maybe in a relationship, you're with a partner who has a much higher drive, or you're at a stage in your life where your drive is low and your partner's is high. And watching porn and masturbating is okay and it's healthy and it's welcomed. Um, Maybe you practice ethical non-monogamy, total other episode that we can talk about, where there are agreements made that dating other people, kissing other people, sleeping with other people is okay. But whatever it is, you need to agree upon it with the people in the relationship. Do you guys agree?
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Like I said, it's
Yeah.
different for everyone, but if you are comfortable with what your partner needs, wants, and you're in the same boat, I think it's perfectly fine just coming to that agreement. But breaking the trust, breaking the integrity, like that, those for me are almost irreparable. I don't know that I could come back from a break in trust.
The trust breach is super important, which is a good question. So is cheating a deal breaker? You find out about it. Say you find you've been together for 15 years and you found out about an affair that happened 5 years ago. Like, is that okay? Do you leave? Say you caught someone in an affair currently, like, is cheating a deal breaker?
Oof.
I mean, I want to say yes, and I also want to caveat by saying I don't know until I'm in that situation, what the circumstances are, what led to the cheating, where was I? Was I not being present? Was I not meeting my partner's needs? It's it's easy for me to sit here and say absolutely it's a deal breaker. I could never get over it because that's how I feel in the moment. But until it actually happens in real life, I'm not sure I could answer that.
I think it is very difficult for women to ever really trust again when there has been a break that big in trust. Um, I feel like it's almost easier for men to deal with cheating than for women. As women, like when we are, and not that sex is penetration, but oftentimes penetration is a very important and large part of sex. And as a woman, like we are receiving someone inside our bodies, like we are taking someone in. That takes a great deal of trust. That takes a great deal of openness. Um, and I think it's very, having coached some women who have had infidelity happen, have had their partner cheat on them, and see those, just the woundedness and them trying to trust their partners again, but really having a difficult time opening up their hearts, their bodies to their partners again. I also think for women, we're constantly being compared to other women. Like physically, that's something that's huge. Like one of the things one of my clients had a really hard time with was, what was her body like? Was hers better than mine? Am I no longer satisfying him? Like all these awful, awful things just keep resurfacing.
Superficial
Yes.
things. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's very hard for women to move past infidelity. I think a lot of them try, and a lot of them say they will, because there's usually things like kids involved, relationships with family members involved. So I think a lot of women will put their own needs and desires aside to try to work it through, and will stick with partners regardless. But to rebuild those bonds of trust, man, it's going to take a lot from that man to really own up
Rebuilt.
what he did, why, take responsibility for why he did it, and then make amends and prove that he's trustworthy again. So in my opinion, it can only really be saved if the man is super dedicated to showing his partner that he will be that rock. I know we talked about the masculine being the rock. Like he will be that rock for her, moving forward.
We know that feeling safe, seen, trusted, those are all massive, massive factors for
Essential.
increasing libido, like just really opening and receiving like the feminine version of the rock. So that it kind of brings up two things for me, Kasey. One, with all of the women that we work with, I see a few things. Brush it under the rug and pretend it never happened, like you said, right? Because there's family or external factors. We just kind of want to like stuff it down and move on. Staying together and holding it against your partner for years to come, like choosing comfort over the comfort of the relationship over growth. Like you're you're acknowledging that it happened, but you're still stuck in a way because you haven't really healed from it.
And then letting that resentment build while that continues.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Which
And
is
then
awful.
he's going to cheat again because it's ice cold at home.
Right. Third would be breaking up because that's what we assume we have to do. Or the fourth category, which is my favorite category, is those that come and they come with so much shame. And sometimes I work with them for a month or 2 months before they're even willing to admit that this is what happened or the affair triggered the low libido, etc. And I mean, if they really look back, there were issues sexually before. But the healing is this acknowledging, and I'll say this story as part of me being vulnerable, which is my practice, what we're working on in the feminine mentorship, and sharing personally about feelings is hard, especially when you seem, together on the outside. So my partner was away last weekend. I was working, our daughter was sick, our support system was sick. So there was a lot on my plate. My stress was high. And I basically just said, like, I want to be able to contact you. I want to be able to get a hold of you while you're away. I know you're 4 hours away. If there's an emergency, like, you're not coming home, but I just want to know I can get a hold of you. Anyways, there was this situation where he wanted to leave his phone at the house and disconnect and go fishing and not deal with work and whatever. We talked about it and I was like, all right, expecting this period of time to be 4 or 5 hours. It ended up being 13.
Oh.
Yeah. And is he dead in a ditch? Like, right. You start to do the fear spiral, like the what's going on. One of which
then turns into he better be in a ditch because there's no other good excuse.
Yeah, he better be in the hospital because
with an IV drip. Yeah.
And then there was the whole, is he cheating? Is he with someone else? Was a honest question that just like broke me open, because for the first time in my life, I'm with a man that I really, truly want to be monogamous with. And I went through this process, like partly witnessing my thoughts, partly feeling them and wanting to be a puddle on the floor, but I couldn't because I was caring for our daughter. But all of those thoughts went through my mind. What didn't I do? What would she have? What, like the whole story that I hear from our clients all the time. And this was just in my mind, right? It wasn't like
the
even
story that you're telling yourself.
You create the narrative when there's when there's a lack of fact, you create it.
Right.
And then I did the counter narrative, like, he's lucky to be with me and wouldn't, and all of that as well. But to feel the weight of an affair on like the hypothetical feeling level, like that shit cuts deep. And there needs to be so much healing. And what came out of that process for me, and like being there for myself and just thinking through that whole scenario, was a ton of healing. It gave me so much perspective as well, but it does cut deep, and we do need the safety and the trust, and we needed to have a conversation about what happened. Like there was a logical explanation, and also just like we're not going to do this again, right? Like a new agreement on communication moving forward. And a bunch of unforeseen circumstances, but like I went there and the fictional version ruined me. So
yeah, that nervous system goes fucking crazy.
Yeah, into overdrive.
With just thoughts, just the thought of it makes it go crazy. And you know what? I want to say that with just about every long-term relationship I've had, with the exception of my current one, they've all been monogamous, traditional monogamous relationships. And anytime there was a moment like that, that's where my mind would go. It would go to, oh my gosh, he's cheating on me or he's dead in a ditch. Like those are my two alternatives. And it's really since being with my current partner. And as you guys know, we are not, a traditionally monogamous relationship. We've been quite monogamous since COVID, but because we have not been traditionally monogamous, but a very extremely committed relationship to each other, like we've had to have conversations. We've had to sit down and say what our agreements are, what is okay, what is not okay. If it is way more ethical, this relationship, this non-monogamous relationship I have now, than any of the monogamous relationships I've had have been, because we talk about what is okay and wasn't okay. And we don't just assume. We just don't assume that we're, on the same page and everybody, is agreeing to these things without agreeing to these things. Like we actually sit down and say, hey, I want to be able to go out and hang out with this person. How do you feel about that? And it's not, I'm going to go do this. It's, how do you feel about it? Let's talk about our feelings. Is that okay for you? And always, always, always putting our relationship first as the cornerstone, so that neither of us feels threatened and we can have freedom within our relationship. But it's so unique and different. And again, not to say that, anytime he did go see anybody else, I was freaking out in my head the whole damn time still, even though I had all these agreements and I knew. But, mostly it was because of the other person. Like the other person's the wild card. You never know what they're going to try or do. So I have agreements with my partner, but I don't necessarily have agreements with her. So that would still get me worked up. But every time he'd come home, we'd always debrief. Again, talking, communicating. And he'd tell me things, and some of the things I'd be like, you know what? I thought I was okay with that. I'm not okay with that. So I've never had this much communication, and this much honesty about my desires and what I'm okay with before. And because of it, he could be gone for days. And I have such faith in him, that if there was anything he even desired, that he would call and tell me before he did anything. It's such a different circumstance than I've ever been in. And it's pretty awesome to have that security.
You keep using the word, which is so key, which is communication. So it took a lot of work to get to that point, right? You're saying past relationships, you didn't have that arrangement, but you also didn't have the same skill set that you do now, right? You've learned what you want, what you desire, what to ask for, how to ask for it, what you're okay with, what you're not. It takes a real level of maturity and health. I mean, what a healthy relationship you guys have to be able to do that. But it starts with clear communication. That's
right.
the basis.
And not assuming that somebody sees monogamy the same way you do.
And I think that is where a lot of it falls. Or if you have these loose guidelines or roles at the beginning of your relationship, that there's a lot of assuming. And then there are those trust breaches, which might not even be like cheating, penetrative sex, whatever. But though there's even those trust breaches, like the, people at work flirtations and emails, the emotional affairs. Thank you.
Yeah.
Or I have friends and clients that have had full on other relationships for 5 years, a decade outside of their primary marriage, and their partner doesn't know about it. And it works. Like, it works and it doesn't work, but we need to talk about different relationship structures on another podcast. But let's go with, how do we heal? So say there is a trust breach, there is an affair. How do we heal it? Where do we start?
Oh, that's a great question.
Great question.
$1 million question, right? How do you heal?
Where do you start?
I personally think a really great place to start for healing for women who have had partners who've been unfaithful is to really focus on themselves and their own sexuality, their own relationship to their body, their intimacy. I've seen really great progress with women who have come to do our program and have realized why they haven't wanted sex, have asked themselves, what does sex mean to me? Like, what is the word sex? Like, we know what it means to men, but what does it mean to me? And what would increase my libido? What do I want? What do I desire? In order for them to, because I think a lot of the difficulties in healing from an affair is the feelings of inadequacy in the bedroom, which obviously were probably there before, and now they're 100 times worse because now this trust issue is also in the bedroom with them. And I think that them healing their relationship to their body and getting to know the female sexual response, getting to know the things that they want, the things they desire in the bedroom, instead of always looking to please him, is a great place to start for women as far as healing goes. Not the whole thing, but a part of the healing.
I completely agree. I think that taking a massive look at the underlying issues that led to the infidelity, because there was 2 people in that relationship, 2 people not communicating needs, wants, desires. Maybe one was communicating, the other wasn't hearing. And, we do have the odd case where women are like full on blindsided. They're like, they weren't in a sexless marriage. They thought it was great. And in that case, I think we are looking a little more at like the partner and what was going on for them in those cases. But a lot of the times there is some real big underlying issues, beliefs about sex, knowing what you want, asking for it, knowing your body, the things that we teach in Pleasure Principles, which just is a perfect way to heal. And community, like, you have to be able to talk about these things.
Oh yes, that sisterhood, like,
and be vulnerable enough to open up and share your story, which inspires other people to do the same, and you realize you're not alone. And it's everything we talk about in Pleasure Principles related to that community and sisterhood.
Yeah. And it's also to be around women who desire, that it's so interesting when we get to the desire module and Pleasure Principles, and we ask women what they desire, and it's like crickets in the room. Like, it's as if women have never been asked this question before. What do you desire?
Because we haven't.
No, right? Like, I don't even know. And, being around women who have desires and are going for their desires and are lit up inside because of it is so important.
And in the end, I want to say, if your partner had an affair and you choose to stay, I respect it. If you choose to leave, I respect it. I hope that the experience taught you something. And like, that's where I think we start the healing. It needs to teach you something about yourself, your desires. And I do think that with the proper community, the proper support, the proper educational framework, like pleasure principles, we can heal from it together, like staying together, splitting up, but either way, learning, growing, being more you than before the event.
And I would
For
just
sure.
add, back to something that you said in the beginning, Kasey, about education and the lack there of it, right? Is that I see someone like you as a mother of a son and how you are teaching him in a way that has probably never been taught before. And we need more of that. And how do we get moms to be more like that? It's them doing the work on themselves, right? So they're not going to be able to properly educate their sons specifically, daughters too, obviously, but in this case, we were talking about what men learn, and we can't pass that on to that generation until we know it ourselves. So kudos to
Cheers to
you for
that.
doing the work, and what a gift you're giving to Luca. He's
Thank
a
you.
he's a lucky kid, and his future partner is super lucky.
Yes, I do agree with that. Like I think it is so important, again, doing this work and talking to women whose sons just treat them like they're maids, they're cooks, they're chauffeurs, and aren't looking to take care of the feminine, aren't looking to see how they can make their moms' lives better, easier, more filled with pleasure. It's a little heartbreaking, and it does, I am relieved that I have received this information, this education myself. And, when my son starts giving me, when Lucas starts giving me a hard time, I'm like, dude, do you want to make my life better or do you want to make my life harder? And he stops himself and he's like, I want to make your life better, mom. Okay, then here's what I need from you. We're a team. I'm not your maid. I ain't your trash can. I'm not your Kleenex. You and I are here and we're going to take care of each other, but I'm part of the equation. And that is, I agree with you, Gigi. That is something that is a little bit of an epidemic out there is moms aren't part of the equations. Moms are really overused doing, as Joe likes to say, like the invisible work. Like they're
Yeah.
really doing the majority of the invisible work. And we don't feel sexy when we're doing all the invisible work. Like, wonder why our libidos aren't there. Well, you know what? Why don't you do laundry? Why don't you pick up and the socks off the floor and cook the meals or meal prep and see, if you want to get busy afterwards. So really teaching our men to do the invisible work and do it because they want to please us will certainly go a long, long way with mamas.
It's pretty fascinating when you think about we're in these gender roles which are outdated and don't
So
work, because when women were at home and men worked, yes, it made sense that all of the household chores and everything fell. That was your role. That was your contribution to the family unit. It made sense. But now we work outside of the home. Oftentimes we make more money. We're higher earners than our male partners, and we're still doing all the household stuff. So we're on all the time. We are stressed. We are in mom mode. We do not want to have sex or be intimate. So cue sexless marriage, unmet needs, not feeling seen, not feeling heard, cue affair. It's like we're almost set up to fail. And I think if we stopped pointing fingers at the affair and looked at it as like a symptom of a greater problem and like a wow, we really lost sight of each other there.
Mm-hmm.
And there's not the shame and the blame and look at how we've been miseducated, how we haven't been taught to communicate and actually make an effort to do so, to get educated, to do programs, to get therapy, to do pleasure principles and heal it from there, then we are able to not only teach our children, but like model the behavior. Because let's face it, they're not going to learn from what we say or what we tell them. They learn from what we do. And
how we let them treat us.
yeah. And it is a constant. I even said in our pleasure principles call this earlier this week, I said, like, let's not turn this into like a parenting class necessarily, because it was all about, well, how do I get my kids to help? How do I get my husband to help? And I mean, that's a pretty sad state of affairs, to no pun intended, but it's pretty sad that that is how we are spend where the majority of people need help is, how do I get help around the house?
Right. With all that invisible work.
And we definitely, and I mean, that's what we're there for. That's what we're helping them do, to get their turn on back or a piece of it. But I'm just saying, like, it's really sad that our roles in relationship have not caught up to something that works for both parties. So both parties can be turned on and communicating and desiring each other.
And for the masculine to catch a clue that when they do pitch in and take some responsibility, that they're going to get laid a lot more if they're vacuuming or folding laundry. It serves
throw
them
an apron on and put a dish in the oven.
Right. Then you'll see the panties drop.
But it is a we thing, Joe, back to what you were saying. It, you know, we all have to do our own work, and obviously it's always an inside job. So it starts with us. And also there needs to be the partnership. There needs to be the willingness on both sides. And these women that are in pleasure principles, I think a lot of times the husbands or partners, their worlds get a little rocked because suddenly the status quo is no longer working and they're used to that and they're comfortable in that. And then it becomes like, oh shit, now we're really shaking things up and now I need to step up, and that's not comfortable a lot of times. So there does continue to need to be the we.
And the support, because it is hard to change the patterns it is so well worn that all of a sudden people are like, well, wait a second, you did this for years. You've been over functioning. I've gotten to under function. And now you're asking me to step up. So this is a big thing that we need to unravel, and we need the support. So
I mean, it's like the women who come to us and say, I've been faking orgasms for 15 years, 20 years, 25 years with my husband. Now what? Now how do I go back to him and tell him that? It's a scary proposition, right? To start, but to your point, it's like we've already set the stage for so long, and to change the rules is scary for both parties.
Exactly. So we've cheated, we've been cheated on. It's universally condemned, universally practiced, and so important that we are at the very least having these conversations and giving women avenues to heal and move forward.
Absolutely.
Novelty isn't there either. And it's like revolutionary to say, have intimacy dates, have date night all together, get a babysitter, get a housekeeper so that you've got more free time to do those novel things. But even those small adjustments can prevent an affair, because you're getting those novel experiences with your partner. And you're not always seeing your partner in those roles of parent, employee, partner. Like, you get to see them outside of captivity.
Yeah. And I think when you're like mother, wife, like you're in housekeeper, if those are your roles, a lot, we desexualize motherhood, parenting, right? You're not allowed to be a mom and sexy, or a parent and sexy, or, we have all these hangups about like, ooh, our parents having sex, that's gross. Like, we all got here because of an orgasm, hopefully 2 orgasms, right? Like,
God willing, I sure hope so.
so,
But I mean, look at like the typical 1950s. The man went off to work and the woman managed the household. But by the time the husband got home, she was in a pretty dress, makeup on, drink made. I mean, I just picture Mad Men, right?
Martini in hand.
Exactly. And even my mom saying that when she was a kid, she was always in a dress before her dad got home. Her mom made sure that she and her sister were put together. They weren't dirty from playing outside, and they had a nice little dress on. So, that was decades ago, and that needs to change. But so I feel like we've come a long way, but we still have a long way to go.
but there's elements of it, right? We have an exercise in pleasure principles that is like, buy yourself some nice new underwear. And it doesn't need to necessarily be like lingerie that's way out there, and you would be surprised at how many women are wearing underwear with holes in it. Like, so just
period panties.
Yeah, period panties 7 days a week. And it is
that is not okay.
Yeah. So even
if you're single, that is not okay.
Right.
Nothing sex. That does not make you feel sexy.
Your pink canary deserves better than period panties.
So much better. But elements of like putting your dress on for dinner, right? And it's not that we want to take that to the fullest extent, but definitely
no, it's different when you're doing it for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I was definitely that person who was single and would go to bed in a cute nightie because it made me feel good. It made me feel sexy. Yeah. So doing it is okay. It just make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. It starts with you.
Yep. And then educating women first and then men, and then having the women educate their men on what to do when they take that dress or that nightie off in order to please the woman and not just the masculine.
I hope you learned something from this honest discussion about infidelity, and maybe it shed some light on a different perspective. It can be tricky to navigate if you are facing problems in your relationship that have to do with infidelity and cheating, because no one ever talks about it and it feels so lonely. And most importantly, you are not alone. Even if you think you are not. There are millions of women feeling the exact same way that you are. Thousands of them are in the Pleasure Principles community. Infidelity is everywhere. And when we get rid of the shame that surrounds it, we can start to truly heal. By understanding this, but having these vulnerable conversations, we can start to reverse the overwhelming statistic of 1 in 2 women suffering from sexual dysfunction in their lifetime. I hope to have inspired you to explore some of the things that catch your interest and find what you truly desire. Follow me on Instagram at Dr. Jordin Wiggins, and make sure to give this podcast a 5-star rating. It helps me reach other women and spread the message that pleasure isn't bad and is here to help. Remember, you deserve love, connection, and better sex than you ever thought possible. Have a great week, everybody. If you like what you heard in this episode, leave me a rating. Your support helps me get discovered by more women like you. Together, we can change the conversation around women's sexual health and pleasure for you, your partners, and generations to come.